Despite starting the season as far ahead, if not even further ahead than they ended the season last year, Red Bull had found themselves in an absolute meltdown due to multiple controversies and investigations, and here is an exact timeline to how it has all gone down thus far. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow at the Pitwell Pod. It means a whole lot to us. Keep in mind this is a delicate situation, and I'm only stating things that other articles have said, and I've left all of them linked below, so none of this is an opinion. All of this is things that other people have said, kind of put all together in one video succinctly. I am simply just stating what has happened and not an opinion on what's happened, because genuinely there are some things that we just don't know the details on fully enough. I'm going to go day by day because it gets that complicated. So here we go. On February 5th, we find out that Red Bull has launched an investigation for, quote, certain allegations of misconduct, and that the rumors surrounding it was either related to just be his, quote, aggressive management style or some more serious harassment things. But again, we didn't know for sure to start out. The company Red Bull proper put out a statement saying, after the company was informed of certain recent allegations, an independent investigation has been launched. This process, which is already underway, is carried out by an external specialized lawyer. This company takes these matters extremely seriously, and the investigation will be completed as soon as possible. It would not be appropriate to comment further on this time. Apparently this had been going on a long time behind doors, and it's, again, Red Bull proper investigating, not just Red Bull Racing. On February 7th, articles started coming out saying that it's suspicious that this was originally leaked from the Netherlands, because again, Red Bull was trying to keep this quiet and then it leaked. And people start linking this possibly to Jos Verstappen, but again, that's just, it seems purely conjecture at this point that Jos would have leaked this and him and Horner aren't getting along. We also started hearing rumors that Adrian Newey might leave if Horner leaves, and later that seemed to have been kind of resolved as they don't seem to have any sort of like exclusive contract or anything like that. But that was the first little taste that we got of maybe Newey isn't fully happy at Red Bull. On February 8th, it's reported that insiders have claimed that there is no way that Christian Horner is going to survive this big interview that he's going to have the following day on February 9th, which it happens that day. It's an all-day hearing from a private investigation company somewhere secretly in London. We hear it's going to take a long time and that no decision is going to be made right away, and clearly that's true. On February 16th, we learn about the female employee that brought these allegations forward that kind of starts turning it towards it's more likely a harassment thing. Again, that is just speculation even now, but especially at that time. But apparently there are over 100 pieces of evidence supported and submitted in December that has led to this whole investigation that is still going on in February. And apparently she was offered £650,000 as kind of a settlement that she turned down. At the same time, Ford begins to get involved. As you know, Ford is going to be the engine supplier / engine manufacturer partner for Red Bull for 2026 and beyond. They get involved and they have a statement that says, as a family company that holds itself to very high standards of behavior and integrity, this begins to insinuate that Ford might pull out of their deal with Red Bull if they're not willing to handle this Christian Horner situation properly. It seems at this point they were looking for more transparency and, a fair process. Not necessarily that they're saying Christian Horner must be fired, but as time goes on, it kind of turned into more that Ford is unhappy with this Christian Horner thing and wants him gone. On February 20th, we find out that Red Bull received a private letter from Ford, once again urging transparency. On February 25th, the Ford CEO expresses frustration that it's been too slow, there's been no transparency, and it's seeming like a real threat that Ford is going to start considering their options to pull out of this, and that would leave Red Bull without an engine in 2026. But the next day, we hear that the investigation is over, and we should hear any day. So, Ford is going to kind of sit at bay and see what happens, and maybe there'll be enough transparency. 2 days later, on February 28th, Christian Horner is cleared of misconduct by the independent investigation team. The quote from Red Bull proper is that the independent investigation into the allegations made against Mr. Horner is complete, and Red Bull can confirm that the complaint has been dismissed. The complaint has the right of appeal. Red Bull is confident that the investigation was fair, rigorous, and impartial. The investigation report is confidential. It contains private information of the parties and third parties who cooperated in the investigation. So basically, and it goes on a little further, but basically Red Bull saying Christian Horner's clear, but we can't really tell you too much because, it's private information. And this is also seeming like it's not going to satisfy Ford because they wanted transparency. And unless there's a way that they can sign some NDA and find out about everything that happened, this is still not looking great because Christian Horner's staying and Ford's not happy about it. On February 29th, an anonymous Google Drive link was sent out 24 hours later, within 24 hours, to hundreds of people within the Formula One and the FIA and Liberty Media, screenshots of conversations that Christian Horner supposedly had with said female employee. People start debating whether or not these are real or fake. It's once again bringing up this investigation right after it was cleared, and it's going to start ruffling some other feathers. On March 1st, the FIA president comes out and says that this is damaging the sport. On March 2nd, Christian and Jerry Horner arrive together in the paddock. Enter Jos Verstappen on March 3rd. He calls for the Christian Horner exit publicly, saying that the team is being torn apart. His quote is, "It will explode." He is playing the victim when he is the one causing the problems. And there's a report that comes out saying that they had a falling out in Bahrain. There's a video about it. Horner and Jos Verstappen are on opposite sides of this, and it's not looking good because the bombshell then comes out that Toto Wolff met with Jos Verstappen with a conversation of possibly Max Verstappen moving from Red Bull to Mercedes in 2025, so next season. This is seeming like a legit thing that could actually happen, but why would Jos do this other than a personal vendetta against Christian Horner? Well, it seems like with a lot of different pieces of information put together that they think Ford is going to pull out of their deal. And because of that, Red Bull is probably going to lose Adrian Newey because of it. And because of that, Max Verstappen is also going to leave because, you know, if you have no engine and no technical director, whatever they technically call Adrian Newey, it's not a good time to be at Red Bull. So it looks like he might be willing to sacrifice 1 year of a almost definite championship at a chance to be at the better place for the rest of his career from basically 2026 onward is when it would be good. Jos Verstappen at this point seems hell-bent on getting rid of Christian Horner or taking Max away from the team, and we all know that Max listens to his dad. In the paddock, rumors start to spread that Christian Horner has said that he can do it without any of them. He doesn't need Ford, he doesn't need Adrian Newey, and he doesn't need Max Verstappen to build a successful team. That's his mentality going forward, so he's standing firm. He's not backing down. He's going to build a team without them if he has to. Red Bull also puts out a statement saying, "There's no issues here. The team are united and we're focusing on racing." Max Verstappen was also asked to publicly back Christian Horner multiple times by people within the FIA and F1, and he refused to do it every single time. Still on March 3rd, we hear that the Red Bull CEO of overall big company Red Bull was certain Horner would be ruled against and was secretly appalled that he stayed and appalled by his behaviors, saying the evidence was overwhelmingly against him. He was ready to dismiss him on February 2nd and had an official press release already ready. And keep in mind, this is before any of us knew that this investigation would happen. So basically, Red Bull was ready to fire Christian Horner and just put out a statement saying, he's fired, the end. But apparently Horner sent his lawyers in and managed to keep his job. And basically at this time, Red Bull proper is against Christian Horner, at least the head management. Jos Verstappen is against him and Ford is against him. But he seems once again to be surviving this and keeping his job, but there are a lot of question marks about who's going to stick around. On March 4th, more and more people report that Max is very seriously considering a move to Mercedes. A lot of very prominent sources, again, a lot of them are linked below. Also at this time, we hear that Max Verstappen has an exit clause that's going to become very relevant here in just a minute, that if Dr. Marko lets him leave, he can leave, or if Dr. Marko is fired / leaves the team, he's a free man. He can go at any time, no breach of contract. And Dr. Marko comes out and says, "I won't stand in Max's way." Basically, Max, you can decide. You can go to Mercedes if you want to. On the same day, Ford begins investigating internally whether or not their partnership with Red Bull can be dissolved. And that's kind of where the Ford part of the story is left off. It still seems like they might dissolve their contract with them if Christian Horner stays around for the future. All of this chills out until March 7th when the Red Bull employee that brought these allegations up was suspended for, quote, being dishonest. They were suspended with pay, so it can't be seen as like an unrightful termination thing because they weren't fired and they're still being paid. But it's a bad look for Red Bull, and the internet is super upset and takes this issue by storm. Christian Horner in an interview says, "I think it's now time to look forward and to draw a line under it. We're here to go racing, and as far as I'm concerned, as far as Red Bull is concerned, we move on and look towards the future. And then next day, March 8th, Helmut Marko, we find out he might be suspended by Red Bull for various media links. And it starts to seem like maybe Dr. Marko leaked the Christian Horner Google Drive way back when. He's ordered not to talk to the media apparently, but he does it anyway. More and more sources saying he's going to be suspended. He's going to be suspended, various media links. And it's looking like, you know, people are saying, oh, Dr. Marko is going to be fired. He's going to be fired. Max Verstappen comes out and says that he can't continue without Dr. Marko, and says if people drop out who are very important to you, at some point it becomes an unworkable situation if that were to happen. Basically, he's saying, I'm going to leave if Dr. Marko is fired or is leaving, and it is kind of already putting Red Bull in this situation of, if we fire Dr. Marko, we're losing Max Verstappen as well. On March 9th, Jos Verstappen speaks out in support of the woman. I sympathize with the woman with all that she went through, but we will see what happens. When asked if it was time to draw a line under the situation, he said, I think it's a bit too late for that now. If that's what he wants, fine, but I don't think it will be possible. I don't want to talk too much more as it will create problems. When asked again about the suspended employee's fate, Jos Verstappen said, Red Bull seem to know what they are doing with her, and we will see. But I think it is for her to come out and see what happens. I think it's too late for Christian to say, leave me alone, and then it goes on. But basically, he's saying it's too late. We have to do something about this. We find out that Christian Horner apparently paid off the woman $700,000, and Red Bull apparently brought that up to $1 million. So it's unclear whether or not this person is still at the team, but she's clearly accepted a settlement. So it's all over, right? It's over now. Wrong, because at the same time, Christian Horner is still at the team. In enters the Ferrari chairman, who's seen at the Red Bull paddock and might be trying to get Adrian Newey. On the same day, Dr. Marko apparently met with the CEO of Red Bull and kind of cleared the air. It seems like everything's fine. He comes out and says that he wasn't the leak and that he barely knows how to use his own phone, which is kind of funny. So he wouldn't know how to set up an entire anonymous Google Drive and not get caught or whatever. So right when I finished doing my research, here's where it was kind of all left off. Dr. Marko seems like he's staying at the company for now, so that's not a problem. Christian Horner is still problematic, and there's a lot of people upset with him, but it seems like he's staying, so Ford is still weighing their options whether or not they can pull out of the deal. And that seems like the main thing that would hinge on Newey and Max Verstappen staying. It's not resolved, but it kind of seemed like it was on pause. And literally, as I was sitting down to record this, a new bombshell comes out, and as today is March 10th, so keep that in mind. A lot of information could change. More things could come out between the time I edit and post this video or that you see this video, so this is very much a continuing story. A new article comes out saying that Christian Horner is going to be fired by Australia, so by the next race. Apparently, the overall shareholders now agree with the CEO's sentiment, so thus Christian Horner looks like he might be fired. And Ferrari and Mercedes are working overtime to steal their assets, and in the end, Red Bull's dominance is so strong right now that the only threat to their success is themselves. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.